Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, featuring the sharpest minds in marketing, inspirational case histories, and weekly insights you can apply to your business. Find out why top CMOs rank this podcast among their favorites. Now, here's your host, Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Given only 2 words to describe the top priority for B2B CMOs in the next year, my 2-word prescription would be to unravel complexity. Not to be Debbie Downer, but you'd need to have blinders on not to see the economic storm clouds on the horizon. And frankly, even if they get pushed back into 2021, smart marketers will use the general uncertainty to batten down the hatches. So yes, let's unravel complexity. The idea here is to streamline every aspect of your marketing plan, from the overall brand story to your communication channels, from employee engagement to customer retention, from testing strategies to the metrics used for measurement. In fact, why not see if we can get your brand story down to 5 words or less and your marketing down to a single page? And we'll talk more about that later, but just to put a finer point on the complexity of marketing today, imagine for a moment you were the CMO of a brand that operated in the ecosystem of another brand. Now, not only do you have the challenge of communicating with employees, customers, and prospects, but you also have this partner, some call it alliance partner, whose every move can impact your destiny. So to get some insights on how to thrive in such a complex circumstance, my guest today is Dux Raymond Sy, CMO of AvePoint, a software company that supports over 15,000 organizations that use Microsoft's SharePoint platform. Welcome to the show, Dux.
Thanks for having me. Boy, it's such a treat and a wonderful opportunity, Drew.
Well, it's fun. So I'm happy. We're recording video too, although we typically don't use it for the show. But I see that you're wearing some of your cool glasses, and I noticed that in every video, it seemed like you had different glasses on. I mean, is that a signature thing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I live, like you said, right, in this complex ecosystem, and somehow I have to stand out. So my glasses have to match with my shoe. So I do have a lot of glasses.
Wow. Well, okay. So the folks, in Luxottica are like your best friends. Okay. So, second question, you mentioned that you get up at 4:30 in the morning in a video. Are you still doing that?
100%. I wake up 4:30 every single day, including weekends. In fact, that's my most productive time. So that's a sacred hour for me, but I still do that.
4:30 to 5:30 is your sacred hour.
That's right.
Okay. So what time are you going to bed in order to accomplish that, if I can ask?
I generally would be in bed right around 10:30 or 11.
Okay. So you're not getting a lot of sleep. That's basically that.
Yeah, sleep is relative, right? I get enough. So
all right. You get enough, and you're one of these people who can function well. Okay. So the third thing is, I've never even heard of the language tapalog, and then I see that you speak this language, and you also speak German and Chinese. The Tapalong is spoken by 24 million people, mainly Filipinos. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's right, Tagalog. So I'm originally from the Philippines, born and raised, and love the 7,000 islands and diversity and rich historical diversity and background. So the language, Filipino primary language is Tagalog.
Okay.
And there's some elements of Malay and elements of Spanish in there. So yeah, I speak Tagalog, and among all those 24 million that you mentioned.
Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna shift now to Renegade Rapid Fire. So let's see how far we can go. Okay. Oh my gosh, I forgot to start my timer. Okay, so what's your definition? And I'm particularly interested in this as a former CTO. What's your definition of marketing?
My definition of marketing is something that drives business demand, facilitates customer success, and inspires colleagues to grow the business.
Okay. And what's your top priority right at this very second?
Right at this very second is to align marketing closely with our sales organization through data-driven metrics.
Okay. And that's a lot of folks talk about alignment between sales and marketing. This is something that has been on your list for a while. This is something you're working through. This is something that ABM has sort of forced upon you. How did you get there right now?
So when I took over this organization, my prior role was CTO. And I'm sure it's very similar to a lot of organizations where marketing's doing a phenomenal job, but I noticed that it's operating in its own silo, where sometimes certainly marketing's pushing the message of our products, of our services, but then it's a hit or miss if marketing can truly help drive our business targets and sales targets. So when I took over the organization, that's one of my top focuses. How can I align marketing from a sales target perspective? And more importantly, how can I incent my team to focus around that?
Okay. So what would you say is your proudest accomplishment so far?
I think my proudest accomplishment is assembling the next generation marketers that are very talented, and that's also a global team. So my team spans across North America, Europe, and Asia, and boy, forming this group of people across different culture and time zones and businesses, it's just phenomenal. So I'm very happy about that. And
so when you say next gen, what do you specifically mean by that? Because I'm sure it's not just an age thing.
No, it's not an age. So, well, I don't know if it has to do with it. So it happens a lot of them are much younger than I am, but it's the mindset, right? It's the fail fast growth mindset where people are just willing to try. They would come up to me, hey, why don't we do these meme or these viral videos, which is unheard of in this software industry. And I'm all for it. Look, I tell my team, if you think you have an idea that will help the business grow, as long as nobody gets arrested.
Okay. So there's a lot of within that. What do you think is the most renegade thing that you've done in your career so far?
So the most renegade thing, I think personally, regardless of my role today as a CMO or even to my prior roles, is I was up on stage. I opened up for Bon Jovi.
What?
In the name of marketing and brand recognition and thought leadership.
Okay, you got to give us more details on that. How do you open for Bon Jovi?
So look, in this industry, I'm notorious for that because in my past life, I didn't have a large company, tons of budget. So I figured out ways tastefully to be front and center. And one of the things I do a lot is when I'm up on stage doing technical presentation, I would be very creative. I would rap, I would sing, I would dance, and it's all out. And Microsoft had this conference called SharePoint Conference back in 2012. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, you know this industry, you know the audience. We're going to hire Bon Jovi to be the evening event. Would you mind opening for him? I go, heck yeah.
I'm in.
And then they're like, what do you need? I go,
what did you do?
Yeah, so they go, what do you need? And at that time, I don't know if you remember this Korean singer, Psy. He did
Of course. There you are.
So I dressed up as him. They got me backup dancers. I did the full-on show. And then I hung out with Bon Jovi in the backstage and opened for him.
Oh, my God. You became a star overnight. Who is this guy?
That was my most renegade thing that I did.
Now, and how many people, thought you were the actual Psy?
Actually, a lot of people. Because
I bet.
This was in Vegas. Everybody's already having a good time drinking.
Yeah.
And people wanted autograph and selfies with me. And I gracefully accepted.
So early on in the show, and like episodes like 1 through 20, I used to ask people what their superpower is. I'm wondering, is your superpower imitating Psy, or do you have a sort of a broader superpower?
Among those things, but he's not as popular anymore. So for me, I have this innate love for language. So I speak multiple languages, and that doesn't include C++, Java, .NET, But I love cultures and languages. So yeah.
So if we add the software languages to the 4 other languages that you speak, are you in double digits?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that you're the man to come to for crosswords when the technical crosswords. Okay. So this is sort of a weird question that it's very specific, but do you have one metric that you can rely on as a leading indicator? Sales is always a lagging indicator. Do you have a leading indicator that gives you a sense that you're on the right track?
So when I first took on this role, I looked at, obviously, marketing. There's a lot of different indicators and metrics. But one of the things we're really getting good at least thanks to my team, is how much business are sourced directly from all the marketing activities we do, campaigns we do, that drives our business. So it's still tied to sales. There's other secondary and tertiary indicators that we look at, but one thing that's on top of everybody's list is how much business do we source, that's sourced from marketing. And then, secondary things like, on the flip side, how much are we helping in terms of retaining customers, driving customer success? And to your point earlier, that's where things like ABM comes in and all that. But again, all this is heavily tied to business growth.
Okay. So, and on the show, some of my guests have actually revealed what their marketing sources, and sometimes the number is 20%. It's been as high, I think I've heard one say 65, and then in private meetings, someone said as high as 80. Just curious, where do you fall in terms of marketing source leads?
I would say we're in between 30 to 60 right now.
Okay. And do you think it's conceivable that marketing could get that number as high as 60?
Absolutely.
And what, so that's sort of, you're in a good position, right? When marketing is actually driving the business, and being able to drive revenue makes life, takes the certainty or the uncertainty out of the role, right? So what do you think are some of the key things that you've been able to do or will do that can get you to this place of 50, 60% marketing source? Well, not call them leads, let's call them marketing source business, right? Because that's what matters.
Absolutely. So I can share two very specific initiatives as a team we're able to put together and pull off. So one of the things that when I had the privilege of taking over the team is, one of the big things we did first is to be industry advisors, right? So a lot of companies out there, especially in the software world, in the enterprise software world, while a lot of companies produces information and education from white papers to ebooks, webinars around their product, but it's primarily limited to that. So you spoke about our partnership with Microsoft. So as you mentioned, we build software on top of Microsoft SharePoint, Office 365. But one of the things we do a lot consistently is produce very practical content around SharePoint and Office 365 technologies, teams, groups. And we don't conflict with what Microsoft produces, but we do things like, for example, Microsoft Teams etiquette, how to use Teams so you won't piss off your colleagues. How can salespeople take advantage and grow their pipeline using some of these tools? So very use case driven, very specific. And boy, in the last 2 years of doing this, not only did it help our positioning as trusted advisors, but things like SEO organically helps us, because if customers go out there and say, what is SharePoint or what is Microsoft Teams, other than Microsoft content popping up, our content's coming up as well. And then we also do this not only in English, but we provide these thought leadership type of content in languages that we have business in. So in German, in Japanese, Chinese, Spanish. So again, that helps us, sets ourselves apart from everybody else. So that's one thing that I think the team has done a phenomenal job, from thought leadership content that certainly ties into our value proposition on the technologies we provided.
Cool. Okay. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about all sorts of things that sort of follow up on what you've talked about. And we're going to unravel complexity. So stay with us. Did you know that Renegade Thinkers Unite was ranked number 2 of the top 10 podcasts for CMOs by Crackerjack Marketing? Wow, we're really honored. Now, we couldn't do that without amazing guests, and we've had some amazing CMOs on this show, and also terrific listeners like you all. If you like what we do here, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Also, as a special thanks, I'd like to send you a free ebook on Renegade Thinkers. Now for that, just email drew@renegade.com. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back, and my guest is Dux Raymond Sy, who opened up for Bon Jovi once. That is a claim to fame that no one on this show has or probably ever will be able to say again. Dux is an unusual individual in the sense that you were a CTO before you were a CMO. And the good news is you know the product inside out, right? You know it, you could code it, you could really help the customer that way. But you don't know marketing, or you didn't know marketing. So how did you get this sort of massive transfusion of what the heck marketing is and how to pull the right levers?
Sure. So prior to joining AvePoint, I joined AvePoint as a CTO of our public sector business. But prior to that, I had my own business. I had my own small consulting organization. And when I started that with my former partner, it was just the two of us. We were both very technical. We were both very good at what we do. But we realized for our business to thrive, there's other elements of the consulting business other than the technical aspect. We had to learn sales. We had to learn marketing. And just like any small business, we didn't have budgets to put ads or set up booth in conference events. And as a result of that, so I dug deep and looked at how can I do guerrilla marketing? How can I do influencer marketing? And boy, I learned so much. So as a result of that, I've written books, and certainly I share a lot of good information, but that was my ticket, if you may, for people to know me. And then I went on the speaking circuit, and then through that type of organic and as people call it today, content and influencer marketing, I learned my way around marketing. And then
very cool. And then
when I joined AvePoint, I served as CTO public sector for about 2.5 years. And when our former CMO moved on, our CEO talked to me. He's like, "You've done this before, right?" I go, "Yeah, kind of." All right. So until we find the next CMO, why don't you take over marketing, and then we'll figure it out. And
so what was the biggest surprise about the role for you?
I think the biggest surprise, frankly, around the role is, taking on this role for a much larger organization. For me, I think the surprise was I was actually shocked in the way that the ecosystem, while, marketing certainly is a big, big part of this business, I feel like everybody, or most of everybody, would still have very traditional marketing mindset, right? And it's not bad, but I feel like it's not enough. I feel like, especially in this day and age, a lot of organizations haven't taken it to the next level. For example, right, in the industry today, especially in the enterprise software industry, sure, traditional marketing methods, things like show up at events, have white papers, make sure you show up in the magic quadrant for some analysts, all that's important and good, but there's still ad hoc things and, frankly, inexpensive things that marketing organization can do to continuously drive brand, customer success, and also, frankly, help grow the business.
Okay, I think I get that. All right, I want to go back to a couple of the interesting things that you said earlier about your success has been, one of the things was becoming trusted industry advisors, and I'm curious how you're within this Microsoft ecosystem. How does that work? I mean, how do you actually make sure that your content is sort of additive and different than what Microsoft is doing and complementary? I mean, that's got to be a little bit of a complex challenge.
It is. So that's a great question. It is a complex challenge. So Microsoft has all kinds of products and services in business. So we only fall into the spectrum of what's called their modern workplace business, which includes SharePoint and Office 365 and all the technologies around it. So, for example, today, Microsoft does a fantastic job producing general content around their technology, general use cases. But what we do then is we look at what they have, and more importantly, we take customer feedback. We, like you said, we have over 15,000 customers around the world, from government organizations to financial services to nonprofits. And they would come back to us and say, "Hey, look, I love this thing from Microsoft. They have this content, but what about this? What about that?" And as a result of those feedback, not only does it allow us to produce content that complements what Microsoft has, but also allows us to think about our products In fact, a lot of our products are built as a result of customer feedback.
Interesting. So, and this is the part of the good news, bad news with a partnership like you have in that my guess is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your customers already are Microsoft customers, right? They're not going to sort of say, oh, let's hire AvePoint and then we'll become SharePoint customers. It doesn't work that way, right?
Right.
Okay.
Primarily, that's the case. They have Microsoft investments already. They have SharePoint. They have Office 365.
Right.
But there's still a need that the existing investment that they have doesn't fulfill. So that's where we come in.
Exactly. Okay, so you have the software, but you still need to optimize it. And it's no different than, a lot of platforms and ecosystems have these sort of partners, but some are more independent and will work with, any of the platforms. You are really only focused on Microsoft. So that defines your universe. So the way you can grow your business is either get more Microsoft customers or, sell more things to those Microsoft customers, right? And I imagine that's your sort of two-pronged business strategy, right?
100%. And frankly, there's still a lot of business to be taken. I'm sure you've seen left and right, Microsoft's doing a phenomenal job as a business. They're competing with Apple and Google as the most valued companies. So there's that. We see a lot of organizations adopting more Microsoft Cloud, Microsoft Office 365. And today, I believe the last stat I saw, there's over 150 million subscribers to Office 365. I mean, that alone is plenty for us to go after.
For the record, Renegade LLC is a subscriber to my Office 360 Cloud. There we are.
So sounds like I should sell to you, Drew.
Yes, exactly. That's going to happen next. But we'll put that off for the moment. Okay, so we operate within the Microsoft ecosystem. When they, from an alliance partnership standpoint, do you go pitch together? Do they help you sort of identify, here's our universe? Or do you have to sort of show up at their events and then sort of get people to identify? I mean, how helpful are they as a partner? And I know that's a really tricky question to answer because you have to always remain in their good stead, but
I mean, that's a great question. So to answer it, it's both, right? And I can share two perspectives. When I started my own company prior to joining AvePoint, I was, a two-person shop. Was it hard to engage and connect with Microsoft at that time? Yeah, it was. Like, no, they didn't want to talk to me, and rightfully so. Why would I spend my time with a two-person shop, has no customers, versus some other partner that could draw customers to us? But since then, they've done a good job coming up with different partner tiers and how to engage with partners. So truly, they'll be in lockstep with you from a messaging standpoint. And these days, we're very grateful that around the world, not only do we work with Microsoft Corporate on broad messaging, marketing, but also on the regional team. So for example, our team in Germany works closely with the Microsoft Modern Workplace team in Germany, and Singapore is the same, and Japan's the same. So local teams work hand in hand, but at the same time, we do invest on Microsoft events, webinars, because they draw certainly a lot of customers to attend those and participate.
So I'm trying to imagine this scenario. So Microsoft Germany is, are they in a sense pitching a company on SharePoint, and they'll bring you along as an advisor? So you come as a bundled solution to say, hey, it's not just about this, but here's also these folks that can help. Is that what we're talking about in that kind of partnership?
Sure. Yeah. For example, a good example is, especially with government organizations, one of the important things with government today is ensuring compliance, data governance, and security, right? So when Microsoft, for example, will go pitch and say, hey, you guys should go to the cloud, go to Office 365. And if customers come back, it's like, sure, we love it. And I know you guys have solutions for compliance and security in Office 365, but we also have on-premises investment. And in scenarios like that, Microsoft will bring us in, hey, no worries. We have a partner, AvePoint, not only can help you with your on-premises, but they can give you this one-stop shop so you can ensure your data is protected on premises and in the cloud. So we complement and extend what they already have. Interesting.
And so you can sort of work with those things. Is there are you ultimately, do we imagine all business goes to the cloud? I mean, the notion of having this stuff localized it feels like a very antiquated.
I know, right? I think fast forward, I would just say 2 years. I think so, because unless this is your core business, unless your business is hosting, there's no reason why not, right? The economics make sense. More importantly, especially from security perspective, it's actually far more secure in the cloud. But I can also understand for organizations that are highly regulated, things like healthcare or defense, right, where certain data has to be stored locally, they can't move it. So I can see scenarios where most of everybody's in the cloud, but there are a handful of organizations that may go hybrid. It's a mix between both.
Right. Okay. So again, I'm trying to sort of get a sense of the marketing that you're doing that you think is particularly so innovative. I mean, the content, the thought leadership, as you described it yourself, let's face it, everybody does events and everybody does the analyst things. And obviously you have to have your content online and show that you're smart and so forth. What do you think that you're doing that is really helping you achieve this, to help you cut through?
So one of the another example, one of the things we tested out recently, it's actually working really well, is we've invested a lot on short videos. And while we still produce, more formal case study like videos or product related videos, we've been doing a lot of informal, very short, say up to 2 minutes, so that we can spread online. So a couple of things we have, right? So I have this thing called Dux Quacks. Essentially, I drive in a car with somebody and I do the interview in the car. We just drive around. And it's no different than having that interview done in a conference room, but people like that stuff.
Sure.
We have another series called Redux. It's fully animated, it's full animation with me explaining a concept, and it's worked really well on LinkedIn. And then the most recent thing we've done, and it's doing really well, it's called Chat and Chew, because I love food. So I've been trying to connect food and our business. So every week I would be eating something and connecting it, what's trending in our industry. And all of those would have a call to action that drives customers to our page, so it'll convert, be it a webinar, an ebook, or trial download of our product.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to find out your favorite restaurants. No, seriously, we'll talk about how these pieces fit together. Okay, stay with us.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers. Interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back, and my guest is Dux Raymond Sy, who is the star of Dux Quacks, Redux, and Chat and Chew. Okay, so those are three interesting video concepts, sort of the Chat and Chew, very much reminiscent of Coffee with Comedians, or the Seinfeld one that he drives around. It's the fun ideas.
Actually, I have to correct myself. It's actually Chew and Chat.
Chew and Chat.
It was relatively new, so it's # Chew and Chat.
Chew and Chat. Yeah. Okay. The first thing that I was thinking about in this is a lot of this is centering around you and your brand, and helping that to grow the AvePoint brand. And I thought that's a very interesting fine line.
It is
for you. And how do you sort of balance that out without sort of making others in the C-suite sort of going, we're doing a lot to build your brand. How are you doing building the AvePoint brand?
Sure. No, that's a fantastic point, right? I think one of the things, especially for next year, is we want to scale. Last thing we want is have the Steve Jobs situation, right? I think how all this kind of naturally evolved is, even prior to AvePoint, I've been out there. I have the industry credibility around technology, not necessarily specific to AvePoint, but just this ecosystem. So people know me. So certainly that helps AvePoint as well. And people do know I work for AvePoint. And in a lot of these small series and segments, I do, do some thought leadership or learning or educational type of conversation. And then certainly I would tie it to our capabilities and what AvePoint brings to the table. Thus far, all my colleagues in the C-suite would tell me better you than us.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's good. And somebody has to step up. And what I like about it is it humanizes the brand, which is very hard to do in technology. And you are an unusual character in that, if it was just an actor, there'd be no substance. And you have the substance behind it because you could actually get in there and code if you needed to. And that does make you unique. And
Drew, that's I think the most important point, right? Going back to your earlier question around opening for Bon Jovi, that's the exact comment that when Microsoft talked to me, it's like, hey, do you mind opening for Bon Jovi? Because we can hire a front act, but you actually know this stuff. You can talk about this stuff. People knows you. And it so happens you're just going to open for Bon Jovi. I think that's a big differentiator.
Yeah. So for those CMOs who are listening and are sort of jealous about the brand, the personal brand that you built along with building your company brand, I think that the perspective of that is substance first, right? And you can build upon that, establish yourself as an expert in the industry, in the sense that you did it. First. So that's cool. Okay. So that answers that question. And those are all these bite-sized videos, lots of conversation about creating that. But, you have to market the marketing, right? You can't just create those videos and get watched. So how are you making sure that these videos actually get seen by the right people?
So a couple of things. So certainly we have our corporate mechanisms to promote it. So from social, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, there's that. Certainly we push it through our regular newsletters that we push to our customers as well. And but the other thing that we've been doing, and we've started doing in the last 3 months, we actually have an internal social selling program. So as marketing organization, we've instituted internally to not only to our sales team, but pretty much anybody in the company, we've gamified it. We've been teaching internally on what social selling is, why it's important to the company, but more importantly, to build your own brand as professionals at AvePoint. And then our pitch is, look, you got to establish yourself as thought leaders in this space, and we have all this content for you, right? So it's up to them to push. And then we hold contests quarterly too. For example, right now we have an ongoing contest. It ends in mid-June. Whichever AvePoint employee that increases their LinkedIn SSI score the most gets an award. So second prize and third prize. So that's how we scale. And then frankly, from my perspective, we find that conversions are much better if driven that way compared to our traditional just paying ads on PPC or putting ads on LinkedIn. I mean, we still do that, but the value of these conversions and ROI is much higher if, my colleagues would do it as well.
So for the listeners who don't know what an SSI score, if you do an employee program, a social selling program, and you're using LinkedIn Navigator, LinkedIn Navigator gives you a score that rates you on 4 particular dimensions. And so if you're sharing a lot but have a small network, you don't get as many points. And so but it is interesting to watch this evolution as employees get involved. A couple other things that I just want to point out is the great thing about these videos that you're creating is they're very they're human and they're engaging, and as a result they are more likely for employees to put out there because they don't feel like they're selling.
Absolutely.
They're selling, right? And so I imagine, I'm just guessing here, but that those types of things are getting shared more than, say, a white paper or some other more heavy sort of product related.
Right. And I'm sure you can see this too, even in larger organizations. I mean, we talk about Microsoft. Look at especially the executive leadership. All the videos, I'm sure Satya has a whole posse and crew doing production, But the videos he put together are very personal, right? It's him. He's not suited up. He's in his office talking about a customer or a new innovation that they've done. And he's not really selling, oh, you got to buy Office 365. But it's much more effective. And I'm sure this is intentional as well, right? As you talk about humanizing, I mean, look, we're in a software company. We're in IT, right? And now being able to humanize that, tell stories on how we're changing and improving customers' businesses and in some cases improving people's lives, I think that's really powerful.
We've talked a lot about the AvePoint brand and a lot of the things that you're doing, and they feel disparate a little bit. So I'm curious if you can describe the AvePoint brand in a few words.
AvePoint helps customers with their digital transformation journey. And what that means is we provide solutions that can help customers migrate, manage, and protect their data throughout their journey to the cloud. And a lot of customers are heavily invested in the Microsoft ecosystem, and we're there to help support them.
Let's think about, in terms of, you've been CMO now for how long?
I would say a little over 2 years.
Okay. And what do you think, we have a group of new CMOs listening. What would be sort of 2 or 3, let's do this, 2 do's and 1 don't for them?
Okay. So I think for me, top of my list to do is you have to be a learn-it-all. It doesn't matter if you come. So for me, I come from a tech background. I didn't come from a marketing background. I had to learn a lot about marketing. I had to, figure out what people are doing. So you got to be a learn-it-all. It's constant learning, right? And I'm in the tech world. I have to constantly learn. Number 1, and number 2, I think to do is you have to reach out and get mentors. I know in episode 99, I think Greg was talking about having personal board of advisors. 100%. And the mentors you get doesn't necessarily have to be all marketers, but I would say folks that are experienced, executives, and people who've been through the trenches, and they can share their words of wisdom. And to me, I have this support system that I'm truly grateful for. And I would say the 1 don't is just never assume. Never assume that certain people know something and you know better, and vice versa. Always listen, right? So never assume, and just always be open to listening and learning. Very
cool. No, those are great, and I appreciate your reference back to Greg's advice, because I think that's so smart. And having a personal board of advisors, and for startups, I happen to be on a startup advisory board, and I was just so impressed, one, by the young folks that are running the company, but the advisory group that they put together, you just went, wow, okay, these guys, you really, it just builds a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to succeed. So, okay, if I were to summarize this show real quickly for the listeners, who I am so grateful that you stayed with us thus far, is a couple of things. Is we've talked a lot about the personal brand of the CMO, and I just want to make sure that we're all clear that that is built on your expertise. If you're just sizzle without substance, it isn't going to work. And I really appreciate that. I love, however, all the sizzle that you brought to your job with these videos, with the introduction of Bon Jovi, and I admire your chutzpah, as they would say in Yiddish, for putting yourself out there on the line. I think that takes a tremendous amount of courage, and courage is sort of one of the big words that I use a lot when talking about the traits of a successful CMO.
So Drew, one of these days I get an award for that, right?
What's that? An award for courage, or just opening for Bon Jovi?
For opening for Bon Jovi. You said no CMO has ever done it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've been shouted out already on Renegade Thinkers Unite. So thank you so much, Dux, for being on the show.
Thank you, Drew, for this opportunity. And boy, would love to connect with everybody. Hit me up on Twitter at MeetDux.
At MeetDux. Perfect. All right. Well, we're already connected on Twitter. I made sure we did that. You have a lot of followers, and you present some very fun content. For the listeners of Renegade Thinkers Unite, thank you As always, you can care by sharing. You can share this with your friends. Put this up on LinkedIn Navigator with all those AvePoint folks, and that'll be much appreciated. And until next week, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.